Anyway, my apologies. Shalom Aleichem, that the last few lines yesterday was garbled. The day before also a little bit garbled, but we cut, spliced, and maybe missed a line or two, but avoided the garble. Remind me of Rabbi Yaakov Polak, who was the Rebbe of Rabbi Shlomo Shachner, who was the Rebbe of the Ramah, was known as the Avi HaPilpul, and he never wrote any Sfarim. He was a genius, and they asked him why he didn't write any Sfarim. It seems that once he was learning actually Bava Kama, and he was giving a share Bava Kama, and a few pages in the Gemara were missing, and he went straight from the bottom of the page to the next page, and he made a whole pilpul how to connect the two pages. And afterwards, they showed him there was two blot missing, and he just made a pilpul. He decided, you know what, I'm not writing any for him, and so on. We are up to the Yud Gimel Amabei. So, Bekitza, just to remind you, we're learning right now. We're still learning about the Abba and Zikin. We had a machlekes between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Chizda. So we know that the dinim are unique. For example, Keren, which is out to gore, it doesn't make a difference where he gores. He's always responsible. The first three times you pay half a nezik, and the fourth time you pay nezik shalom, except Rabbi Tarfon holds that if you enter the property of the victim, then you actually mishuna Keren, that what you pay the full amount from the very beginning. Shen v'regel, on the other hand, have an interesting halacha, that is, because it says the beer is the acher, by Shen, beer is the acher only if it's someone else's property. And in the Rishus Harabim, Shen v'regel are exempt. And we had a discussion that, if you're walking on the board, that the board extends out to the next property, and in a private property, but you're walking on the street. How do we treat that? So Shem v'regel partner Rishus Harabim and a chayiv b'sdei ach, and the boyer is only chayiv in the Rishus Harabim. And we have what do you call it? We had a machlekes of Chiz and Rabbi Elazar. What happens if you both had a partnership? How do we treat that? Do we treat that as the acher? In other words, you have a partnership, you both share a property together, and then your animal, the mazik's animal, went and damaged the produce of the nizik, or trampled on the kalim of the nizik. Is that called sdei acher or not? According to Rav Chizda, you are chayiv because it's called sdei acher, and we explained that it's based on the idea of shutvus, that each one has a full half, and therefore, even though the mazik has a right to be there, the mazik is stepping into the reshus of the nizik. It's totally sdei acher, and because that's where the produce is, and therefore the mazik is liable. And Rabbi Elazar says no, that if it's not considered the acher because every single centimeter belongs to both of them, so the mazik has every right to be there. So it's not the acher, someone else's son. Okay, so then we brought over here, we're trying to understand when it says Rishus Hanizik v'Hamazik, when the Mishnah says, what do you call it? So we discussed that what does it mean when the Mishnah says Kishehizik Chava Mazik? So we said before, it comes to add, let's say, Keren. But according to Rav, that the word shor in our Mishnah already covers every single possible kind of damage that a shor does. And the word mava is referring to the damages that a person does. So what does it mean? What are we adding? And we said it's coming to add, let's say, shaymin. It's coming to add shaymin. The shaymin is totally responsible. So now we are up to the Gemara here. Amamar, about 7 lines about the page of Gimel and Beis. Amamar, we said before, we're going to address this now. When it says the mazik is liable, the havi shaym mechinim, to include the shaymin. A shaym mechinim does it for nothing. The only responsibility is if he was negligent. Big machlek is whether negligence is a din in shaymim, or that's because he's a mazik, being negligent, you're just like a mazik, or hashayil, the borrower, or noishes sachar, somebody who's getting paid, or somebody who is renting that. And who's responsible for stolen and lost object as well, but potter for an einus. So that's what's coming to add kishehizik. The animal causes damage, you're liable. Hey, what exactly are we talking about? We're talking about the animal of the lender, let's say. So who did the animal of what actually happened? If the animal of the lender damaged the animal of the borrower, and you're saying to the lender, you have to pay, why would the lender have to pay? Excuse me. The lender would say, if my animal caused damage, not to your animal, but someone else's animal, you took responsibility. It's you thought has to pay. Why do I have to pay? So if my animal damages your animal, you make me pay. It's ludicrous. Yeah, Nachmed. The lender is the one who caused damage to the borrower. Let him say, he would let him say, If my animal would have caused damage somewhere in the world, you would have to pay. And now that my animal damaged your animal, you want me to pay? You're responsible. No, so must be talking about the aske toida the shoyl to the mashal the way around. That the shoyl's animal damaged the mashal's animal. So and you only pay, and the din is that you pay like a tam the first 3 times. Says the mashals make sense. If my animal was damaged from a strange animal, you're the shamer, you're totally responsible. You're responsible even for accident, for oinus. So now that your animal killed my animal, you only pay half. If my animal would have been that one you took responsibility for was damage from the world, but still make cool. Tell you have to pay for the entire animal. And now that your animal caused the damage, you can pay only half. It doesn't make sense. Says the show. We're talking about that the animal of the lender damaged the animal of the borrower. So in that case, why in the world should the lender be responsible? We're talking about here. All of Shmiras Gufi, the guy who took responsibility said, look, I'm responsible if your animal gets damaged. But if your animal causes damage to others, that's your headache. Exactly. So therefore, Marshall, I never took responsibility. Your animal damaged my animal. You have to pay half. Exactly. The question then is, so then obviously, so I'm sorry, Tate already asked. So what's the chiddush then? The chiddush, we would have thought that I did not take responsibility for your animal damaging strange animals. But if your animal damages my animal, it's in my house, I should be taking care of it. You should be exempt. Kamashla, that no. That if I did not take responsibility, then you, Marshal, are, even though you're not there, you're responsible. Fine. Then if so, it doesn't make sense. Look at the sefer. What happens? Let's say the animal broke out at night, or she put to a listing, or let's say the robbers came in and broke the fence and it allowed it to escape. Sounds like because there's an accident, totally not your fault. Had it happened during the day, chayiv. Now, who we're talking about over here? We cannot be talking about the lender in this part. That the lender is chayiv. Why not? Because how in the world would the lender know by day that if the wall broke down? It's only at night if the wall broke, you potter, but the wall broke by day, you'd be chayiv. How in the world is the lender supposed to know? As far as the lender is concerned, he doesn't live there. For him, it's always an accident. So let's be talking about somebody who would know during the day. And that would not. So now we jump back to the borrower. Now, if you just said the borrower takes no responsibility, then even during the day, if the animal went out, broke through the fence, and went out and caused damage, why in the world is the oh sorry, why would the borrower be responsible? Doesn't make sense. We jump back to the borrower now, but it doesn't make sense. If you're right, you're right. A few words are missing. The Bryce then says, "Im kibul Allah shmir." What would be the din if he did take responsibility? He's chayiv. Nifrit belayla, if it broke at night, I should pursue a listim, or if robbers broke through, the yotza went out, vizika poti pot. Says the Gemara. Now let's go back to the original discussion. We had a machlekes of Chizah and Rabbi Lozer. Chizah says a chotzer hashutrim is considered the acher and you're responsible, and you're chayiv for shen v'regel, and Rabbi Lozer says no, it's not considered the acher because the mazik had a right to be there, and therefore you are potter. Says the Gemara. Now we're jumping back to that. It's not so. But Tony Rabbi Yosef quoted a brisa which seemed to support Rav Chizda and disagree with Rabbi Lozer. What's the story? It says there Chotzer Hashutrim, a courtyard that belongs to 2 partners. They have pundik or a hotel, which is basically a partnership. Everybody pays rent for their rooms. Chayiv behen al Hashem v'regel. It says clearly here that you're chayiv Hashem v'regel because it's considered day achet, another person's field, a private field. Even though you have a right, the mazik right to be there, but the nizik also has right to be there. So you have to Rabbi Lozer. Question Rabbi Lozer. Rabbi Lozer answered with Tizbra. Let's understand this for a second. Masnita mila kligi. I'll find your brisa that agrees with me. So obviously there's an argument because what Tanya we learned as follows: Arba klolos hoyer Rab Shimon ben Elazar Eimer ben Zikin. Rab Shimon ben Elazar, the Tana said there are 4 rules regarding the zikin. Number 1, kol shehu reshus lenizik. If you trespassed, if the mazik's animal trespassed and went into the victim's property, the loyal mazik and mazik has no right to be there, chayiv bakol. Then you're chayiv for shen v'regel because this is the acher. You're also chayiv for keren. What about when bakol? We'll soon see what bakol what Gemara is going to say means you pay the full amount from the beginning, even keren, because this follows up tarfim. That you pay the full amount you trespassed. What about the next case? What about the mazik? It's the mazik's property, and the nizik's animal wandered. The victim's animal trespassed, and the mazik's animal went and caused damage. The loyna nizik, potter mikol, you're exempt. which is actually quite contrary to the Western rules, where if a guy breaks into your house and then trips over, you're responsible. My son-in-law has a case right now. A Schwarzer went into just this week. A Schwarzer is suing him with one of these legal aid things. He claims that somebody shot him in the middle of the street, so he ran to hide. He ran into the alleyway of my son-in-law, and he tripped over something in it was dark, so he tripped over something, and now he's suing because he got hurt himself. Even though supposedly it saved his life. The only problem that he has is my son-in-law has cameras, and yeah, and that time that he says he was there was nobody in the alleyway. So we'll see what happens. But that's the idea. And the halacha is if the victim came in, you are potter. Case number 3. Partnership. This is what we're focusing on. The partnership, Chatzar Shutfin, getting Chatzar Shutfin, a big or in a valley, a plain that everybody has a right to be there. Then potter. It says clearly like Rabbi Lazar, like the Amoyer Rabbi Lazar, that it's potter, because the mazik has a right to be there. Bo'al Hashem, Bo'al Regel, you are potter for Shem Regel, but you're not potter for Keren. Because by Keren, you're chai wherever you are. Al hagicha, but on a gicha, on goring, while the gifa, you shoving the body on the shicha and chewing while a bita and throwing themselves on something while a bita and giving a kick. Tam mishal mchatzinezek, mu mishal mishal. Tam pays half a nezek, mu pays full nezek. Okay, case number 4. What about loyal? The property belongs to neither of them. Doesn't belong to either of them. Excuse me. Then, I'm sorry. Now that's to be a problem as well. Because how could you be Chayiv Hashem B'Regel if neither of them has a right to be there? It says B'zdei Acher. When it says in the pasuk, "Will be a B'zdei Acher," it means the victim's field, not in a third party's field. So we'll see later when it says it doesn't belong to both of them. It means it doesn't belong to both, but it belongs to one, to the victim. The tam pays half. In this case, is half, and we're going to have a problem because if we're going to learn that it's talking about the victim's property, we just started off before saying that if in the victim's property, the very first time the tam pays the full amount. In case number, if we said in the beginning, Bakoil, if it's the nizik's property, you pay full amount. So we have a problem from the beginning and the end of the Bryce. We'll see later. But let's focus on what we're trying to say here. Case number 3, Chatzar Hashutfin Vabika for partnership, Potter Ba'al Hashem V'Regel. You're Potter. So Rabbi Loza says, no problem, I got a Bryce that supports me, and you have a Bryce that supports a Chizah. Saying what a Kasha Dodi. And we don't like to say that the Bryces are arguing if we can avoid that. So Yomar says, you're right, they're not arguing. And we're going to say, we're going to change everything around now. We're going to say, when we say partnership, what do you mean partnership? There's 3 ways of partnership. One way is that we both have the right to plant their produce there, but we not both have the right to bring our animals there. So in other words, it's a chatzar shutfim b'negeya the produce, but not a chatzar shutfim b'negeya the shvarim, the animals. The other way of learning is that it's a chatzar hashutfim b'negeya the animals, as we'll see in the bottom of the page, but not a chatzar shutfim b'negeya the produce. Only one of them has a right to have produce there, and the other one has only a right, together with share, a right to have animals there. And the third one is a proper partnership. You can do everything. So the Gemara is going to say now that you thought we're talking about a normal partnership here. We're limiting it. We're talking about over there, B'chotzer HaMichedes. When Abshim Elazar says that it's potter, it's talking about Michedes Lezel Bein Lepeiros Bein Leshvarim. That we're talking about it here, that's a proper partnership. So the Mazik had a right to bring his animal there. Because the Mazik had a right to bring his animal there, therefore he's potter, because it's not Zdei Acher, it's my field, just like your field. I heeded Rabbi Yosef, that case of Rabbi Yosef, we said by a partnership that you're, and the Puntik over there, he said that your libel is talking about that the Mazik had no right to put his animal there. The Chotzim Yichedes Lepeiros were partnerships in the produce, but the Einam Yichedes Lashvarim. There's no partnership here when it comes to the animals. As far as Shen is concerned, since your animal had no right to enter the field, it's considered be as the Acher. And they can prove it to you that the way we're learning 2 Bryce is correct. The Tony Hacha in the second Bryce it says, in the first Bryce it says Dumya de Pundik, like a hotel. In a hotel, who brings the animals into the courtyard there where everybody's staying? Nobody brings animals there. That's the kind of chutzah we have. We have a joint partnership when it comes to planting, but we don't have a partnership when it comes to bringing in animals. Tony Hassan, but Shimon Lazar's case, what does he compare to? Dumya the Bika. In the big, you bring your animals just like you bring your fruits, full partnership. Shmamina, masculine Rav Zera said, I still don't understand. The fact is, we're partners when it comes to fruits. In the case of the first of Rabbi Yosef Brisa, at least you're agreeing we're partners when it comes to the fruits. There's no over here. We're partners because he's learning here that every single centimeter, every inch of land, we're both partners. So I'm just like you are. I said, I disagree. I hold the fact that we're partners of vegetables doesn't mean anything. You know why? Because you have 50% and I have separate 50%. We don't know which one it is. But where your produce is, that's your 50%. And therefore, it is there. So the Abai and Zayda are arguing in this principle how you understand shutfus. Now that we established the price and not argue with each other, maybe the Bezachis doesn't argue with each other. They're arguing shot in the Braisa. But maybe they're not arguing with each other at all in the halacha. No, one guy's talking about one kind of a chutzner, and the other's talking about different kind of chizah. Talking about chayv, like the Braisa is talking about when they're partners in the produce, but they're not partners in the crop, but they're not partners, to plant it, but they're not partners when it comes to the animals. And the blood holds are partners in everything. I'm leaning, you're right. But the imtim tzloyim pliga, even we want to say they're still arguing, is bekusha that even though you want to say they're talking about the same case, and they're arguing in the kusha of Rab Zayda and Puruka Dabaya pliga. Rab Zayda said that it's not considered de'achet because they're partners at least in the crop, and Rabbi says no, because the animals don't like to be, they're partners in the crop, doesn't make you partners. Okay, Goof. Let's analyze the Braisa Arba closer. By Nazikin. Now what? That you chai bakoil. You said that if you enter the nizik's property, you trespass, you chai bakoil. What does bakoil mean? Should have said alakoil Tony. Ela chai bakoil. It means bekul nezik. That even though this animal is a tam, because it trespassed, it has to pay the full amount. Who holds that? That a tam ever pays the full amount? Saying when a man that's a view of tar from the Amma Meshuna Kenem because nizik nezer shalom meshal. He pays the full nezik. Says he aim a safer. Okay, so you're telling me he goes a tarfin. But look at the last case. Loy belongs to neither of them. And we concluded before, which is based on the Gemara here. Loy must mean they must belong to somebody, to one of those two. The Now my belongs to neither of them. Third party. You can't be chayiv if it's a third party because the acha means in the victim's property. El pshita belongs to one of them, right? So it belongs to one of them, and yet it says how much should you pay? A tam pays half the nezek, and yet before we said that if bakoil means that you trespass, you pay the full nezek. That follows the view that Rabbanan, the Amri, they hold mishune keren, that keren, which is unique. Unique it means that it's strange, it's deranged because normally the animal doesn't go out goring. So the first 3 times is considered mishune. The chatzanezishon pays only half. Reisha Tarfin the safe for the Rabbanon. Does that make sense? Yes. The Amali Shmuel said to Rabbi Yehuda, interesting. Rav never called Rabbi Yehuda Shinna, you clever one. Shmuel's going to call Rabbi Yehuda Shinna, you clever one, because first Rav had him at the Talmud, and when Rav passed away, Shmuel took him over. I guess he was very impressed with Rabbi Yehuda. Shvoik Masnisis v'Tor Basrei. Forget the Braisa and follow me. Reisha Tarfin the safe for the Rabbanon. Yes, in this case we have no breda, but to say that is 2 different authorities. However, I can argue that the entire Braisa of Tarfin. So how come in the beginning he says Nedek Shalom Chati Nezek? And what do you mean Leila Zevel? You learned wrong shot. You understood Leila Zevel means it belongs to the victim. No, let's go back to what we said before. You know, my Leila Zevel Lepedis. Exactly the opposite before. Where they're partners for the animals, but they're not partners for the crop. So as far as the produce is concerned, whose field is it? It's a Zdayachet. And as far as the animals are concerned, they both have a right to be this, like a Shus Rabin. But Keren pays in a Shus Rabin. It's not a case of trespassing as far as the animal is concerned. As far as the crop is concerned, is trespassing, so you pay the full amount. But as far as the damage of Keren is concerned, animals had a right to be there because they're partners in the animals. Comes the crop, it belongs to one. But when it comes to the animals, they're both partners. So far as Shen is concerned, is considered private property. It's the Achen, therefore you pay the Shen Regel. Obligabe Keren, since we both have a right to be there, have the Shus Rabbi. So Shus Rabbi. Why does it have 4 principles, not 3? Because this case is like a Shus Rabbi as far as Keren is concerned, which we had before, and as far as Shen is concerned, it's private property, which we had before. You entered the new property. Where's the 4th case? I'm not really sure you're right. There are only 3 principles, but 4 different cases of it.
The nafkamin is what?
So we already covered these rules. And but the dinim are different in each case. And here you have a case where the partners in one part and not part in another part, which is what do you call it? Is a different case, even though the principles are the same. The case is just different. So we gave you different scenarios. Mishnah. Now this Mishnah is very cryptic, so the Gemara is going to go through the Mishnah and fascinating stuff tomorrow. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Actually, it's beginning to as well. So Mishnah. Okay, Shem Kesef. That when you assess you assess it has to be money. What does that mean? We don't have no idea. Shavik Kesef, the equivalent of money. Bifnei bezin, in front of a bezin. The alpi edim, you use witnesses when you mazik. When somebody's a mazik and you want him to pay, you have to have witnesses. But who should the witnesses be? Bnei chaydim, people who are free, and not avodim bnei bris, Jewish. The hanoshim bechlal hanezik, and women makes no difference. Men or women, if they're a victim, they have to be reimbursed. The hanizik, the hamazik tashlumin. Sometimes you can have a case where the nizik is also culpable, and he has to share into the payment. Very cryptic Mishnah. So the Gemara goes through the entire Mishnah. Interesting why the Mishnah should be so cryptic. It's like playing like a puzzle. Says the Gemara, when you pay, you should only pay with money. Bezin should assess, and how much is the damage, and that's what you pay. We'll see in a minute. Tanina laha, so now the Gemara understood. Sorry about we learned. Para shezika talus. Big machlek is showing him how to learn pshat here. Traces understood in Rashi a certain way, but and Traces learns differently. So and our Rashi seems to be learning like Traces learns. So let's just do the way that as follows. It's two different examples: either a para shezika talus, a cow that damaged a talus, or a talus shezika para, or a talus. Let's say now a talus is lying on the ground and a para trips over it. That's like boyer. Where is boyer chayiv? Only in the Shusharabim. If the animal caused damage to the talus, which is regel, where's regel chayiv? Only shusayachid. So it can't be talking the same case. So it's two different cases. The way Teijan Rashi is that it's one case. The animal caused damage to the talus at the same time caused damage to the animal. So we would have thought, you know what, each one should take the other swap, whatever it is. Commercial, we don't do that. Or you just work, you work out the difference, you pay the difference. Teijan says it's impossible because this can only be chayiv in the shusarabim. This can only be chayiv in the shusayachid. How can be? So therefore, it's or. It's two different cases. Ain't no, I mean, takes a part of it. Say, okay, let's work out the difference in the value. Or in the way we're learning right now, or is that let's just say the animal damaged the talus. Let's take the animal as payment. No, you got to work out exactly what the talus, the damage of the talus, the value of the animal, and then you split the difference. You work out the difference. Shavik kesef, then they give the value of money. What's the value of money? So we learned shavik kesef. You should pay with land. We call that Shavik Kesef. We'll soon say how in the world does Shavik Kesef mean land? Because still now we learn Shavik Kesef means, as we'll soon say, even silver, even brand. Avolim kodem nizik v'tofas. But even nizik jumped in ahead and grabbed metaltlin. Right now we're saying you should pay, let's say the hezek, you should pay with land. You pay with land. If the nizik jumped in and grabbed metaltlin, portable items, you know what? Okay, get paid from that. Let's understand. Let's understand it. You pay with land, with fields. How do you see that? How do you see the word shavik kesef means to pay with fields, with land? That what everything else that you buy, we have a law called oino. You can't cheat somebody. You can't cheat them more than a sixth. But land, property, has no value. There's no oino by karka. Actually, big machlek is showing, like Taisa here says, up to 50%. But most of showing there is no, because the land will always increase in value. If not worth that today, we worth that tomorrow. In fact, this is their mocker, because it says Hashavah kol kesef. There's no limit. Taisa says kol kesef lav dafka. It means up to 50% more. No, what has no cheating? And that is property. So that's what it means. That's how we know Shavah kesef means all the money in the world. Everything else has a limit, a cap, sixth. Let's say around 16.5%. Says the Gemara, what are you talking about? We'll see in a minute. We're going back to our first case. Shem Kesef, which means you said Shavik Kesef means you have to pay with land. There's no cheating by avodim stars as well. Something that you buy with money. So Gemara says avodim v'shtar namni, you can buy avodim with kesef, but so too you can buy contract with kesef. Rashi says he doesn't. He has no idea where the mucker is that you can buy contract with kesef, and Toisa says omit it. So whether Rashi admits or the Rashi, because the big machlekes in halacha, can you buy a contract by just paying for it, or do you have to actually? Remember, we had a machlekes if oisas niktas b'mesira, or you have to write a contract like machlekes Rebbe Nechachamim, where you have to write a contract plus mesira if you want to sell a loan contract, for example, or a deed or whatever it is. But here it says kesef, so whether it's correct or not, but actually we don't know. Yeah. It has to be something that is worth money and not money itself. The hani kula kesef, all metaltlin is considered kesef because it can convert it easily to money. Everything has value. Land is much harder to sell, and therefore land is considered shava kesef. And that's what the Mishnah meant when it said shava kesef. You pay only with land. Only land, yeah.
So I can take money anywhere I want.
So we're saying exactly. So because the Mishnah said shava kesef, it means something that it's not so easy to convert it to money, which is what? Land, property. It takes time. And everything else you can sell right away. You put it online in 5 minutes, you can sell it. You're telling me by the Zikin you can only pay with property. That says you have to pay with property. But didn't we learn Yoshiv l'Rabba Shavik Kesef Filosumin? Didn't we learn from the word Yoshiv, which is extra, that you can pay even with brand? You don't have to pay Davka Karka. We're talking about the same. Of course, you can pay with if you go directly to the borrower or to the person that owes the money. Here we're talking about your same. And so what? No, you're talking about taking the father's. When do you have to pay the father's debts if there's property in their belonging, in their assets? But if there's no land, like you remember having if there's no land there at all, that's metaltlin. They don't have to pay the father's. There's no lien on the metaltlin. Talking about if we're talking about your same. If you grab metalton, it helps. If it's just saying, why can you help? Why does it help? If there's no lien on the metalton, then just because you grabbed it, so what? So what? You have no right to grab it. If I go in your house, I grab something, say, oh, you grabbed it already, you can keep it. No such thing. When I asked they had a case where we said while the father was alive, the guy grabbed it, and now that the father died, the guy said, "Look, I grabbed it. And your father was alive. So and when your father was alive, he could have paid me. There's a lien on everything. It's just that doesn't pass on to the children. So therefore, now that the father died, I'm keeping what I have. I'm retaining it." Now Rashi says something that perplexes everybody. The reason why metalton the asmer allowed meshubit to the chayv of the father is because there's no lien on it. Rashi says, you know why it's not meshubit? I'll just quote you the second line of the wide lines of Rashi. Metalta the Yasser l'mishtazu b'chayiv a new pshat. The ikal l'meimel acha misas avian kon. How do we know when the metalta came to possession? Properly, everyone knows there's a coil. How do you know the metalta came to possession? Which means, according to Rashi, if we know for a fact that the father had this car or whatever it is prior while he was still alive, then there is a lien on it. What does that mean? There's no lien on metalta. We also had a Gemara that there's a mitzvah for children to pay their father's debts, even though the father did not leave any karka behind. There's a mitzvah. And if there's a mitzvah, then if the guy grabbed it, maybe the grabbing is good. So Rashi there was coming to say, maybe, that even though there's a mitzvah, and you would argue that if the guy grabbed already, it should be good, but no. You know why it's no good? Why after father died? Because maybe these metaltlin were not there while the father was alive, only afterwards, and therefore, even though it's a mitzvah to pay off with the metaltlin that the father left behind, not new metaltlin. Maybe that's what Rashi wants. Anyway, let's continue. Mara. Bifnei bezin. What do you mean from a bezin? It seems. What do you mean from a bezin? If the guy sold, if the borrower or the nizik or the mazik sold his property before they actually went for a court case. No, but he sold it. You cannot go to the lukuchas. You cannot go to the purchasers to collect it. What are you talking about? You tell me, and I did that if I borrow money and I had property, there's a lien on the property, and then I sell it afterwards before we had a dispute. You went to the you cannot go to those properties. What are you talking about? There's a shibud. And And we had also that a milva haksuva b'toida. We have the Yukimel in conclusion. The milva haksuva b'toida geksuva v'shtardamya, and the zikin is like ksuva v'shtardamya. If you hold shibud of the raisa. So what do you mean? Unless you hold shibud ella prat lebezin hadjaitis. When it says here bezin means a proper bezin, not a bezin ordinary people. Why not bezin ordinary people? Because this is zikin is like a knas, and by knas you need smicha. And that's what you mean there. It has to be musmachim. It has to be mumchin. Has to be mumchin. Yeah. Right. So Rashi and Tais about to learn that this Gemara is talking about the zikin, which is keren, which is knas, as we'll see in the Gemara tomorrow. That the palganisk is knossi. Oh, my but one page says knossi. Second Gemara, therefore you need mumchin. Not like others that say that in all din you need mumchin. Alpi edim prat. There's a din is that if a guy goes to court and says, "Look, I stole. I admit that I'm a ganef," and you pay back the kid and the principal, but you don't pay the penalty. Why? Because that's ashina lekim. But there's two ways of understanding it. One way of understanding it is the pshat. I cannot incriminate myself, or I cannot bring penalties upon myself. Only Elokim can. Or is the pshat because I was so nice, and I came and I was made this like a kapara, so we reward you that we're going to patter you from any knosses. In other words, is it because we cannot be mechayev you, or is it because we actually patter you? What's the difference? To encourage people, exactly. And mine have come in halacha. What happens a week later? Two witnesses come into court and say this guy's a ganef. After you admit it, does he pay knas or not? If you learn that by him being made, it's the tour. We want to facilitate to make him, encourage him to go ahead and to do tshuva. So if it's a tour, then the agent came later. Too bad, it's too late already. We patted him from knas. But if the word is he cannot bring upon himself a knas, that's all it is. So if two agents come a week later and say, "Yeah, this guy is a ganav," then he pays a knas.
It's no longer an existence thing. It's already returned.
Doesn't matter. But the Adam, but the knas we just couldn't levy it. But we know that it happened because two agents came along. The Adam up bring the knas. Who's mechayiv knas? A court. He couldn't be mechayiv himself the knas. But once the Adam come along and say, "Yeah, 2 weeks ago he stole it," even though he paid back the principal, so what? 2 weeks ago he's a ganav. Now the Adam bring upon them a knas. Says the Gemara. So al pi Adam prat lemoide beknas v'akab Adam. He was made in knas, and then Adam came along. Shu potter is potter. If the Adam came next week, he is potter. Why? Because it was a ptur. So that will make sense. That's what it means al pi Adam. But if he was made and then Adam came along, he's potter. The Gemara says that only fits in with that opinion that says that you are potter. But the one who said that if you were made in beknas and then Adam came along, you're still chay, because all it is you couldn't bring upon yourself a chiyuv of knas. But once they come, they're the ones who make the chay. What's the chiddush then of this Mishnah here about Adam? Sefer Itzchlei. The chiddush actually is now. The Gemara commands very simply that if no Adam came at all, the Mishnah is coming to negate. But what happened if he alone was made? You're potter. That's all. Not if Adam came next week. Who didn't come? Who we mentioned about Adam coming next? So Taisa already says. Now there's a Meferish Mishnah that says that later on in Meruba. What do you have to say it here for? So must be talking about to negate a case of Adam. What's the chiddush? So Gemara says the chiddush here is. No, but if Adam come lady taka achayiv, so what does the Mishnah mean when it says Adam? It's telling you what kind of Adam we can use b'chlal. Sefer Itzchei. The chiddush is that it has to be b'nei chayden u'b'nei bris. It has to be people who are free and yidden. And we're going to learn tomorrow what that comes to tell you. But only no, not an eved and not a goy, but only a yikbi and aid. So says the Mishnah here, Alpi Adim, and there's no chiddush involved, and Alpi Adim, B'nei Chayim, B'nei Bris. It has to be Adim who are B'nei Chayim or who are B'nei Bris. That's what the Mishnah is trying to tell you.
Do we accept this from
Oh, we'll talk about it tomorrow. Okay. So